We get to sit awkwardly close for a while.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Hey everybody, Craig with CTF. We're going to talk today to David Chesworth. David's got an amazing story that I think you guys are going to find, I guess, educational, hopefully empowering, and there's some really good messages in here about what we can do when we face adversity. So David's been an inspiration for me, and we've been talking about doing this for a while. So David, why don't you just let's start with how old you are, where you work, what you currently do,
okay,
and then we'll get into some of the details in a little bit. So
sounds good. Hi, I'm David, as Craig said. I'm 23 years old, turning 24 in April. I'm a fitness coach at Hilton Head Health, weight loss resort and spa here on the island. And what else did you say?
That's pretty good.
Okay, cool.
So David, let's talk about, let's bring the audience into kind of what happened here. Let's talk about what happened a year ago, almost to the day.
Okay, yeah, so actually yesterday, exactly a year ago yesterday.
Let's tell them the date, they probably won't.
February 12th, right. It was yesterday. February 12th, 2014, ever since I was a kid, I had always had a goal of being able to do a backflip, a standing backflip. Back tuck, some people call it. And I was progressing very rapidly on the tumble track, which is like the inflatable tumble track, and my confidence was probably too high, and you know, the people around me might have been helping boost my confidence possibly too soon.
Was this a conviction training facility?
This was not a conviction training facility.
We don't have a tumble track, so.
Yeah, right. This was a completely different gym.
Right.
But I was going there to actually focus more on the gymnastic side of things so that I could bring that back to conviction.
Yep.
And essentially it was a day like any other, and it was the end of a workout, so I was actually pretty fatigued already, and I was doing something that I wasn't quite mentally or physically ready for. My body had never done it on the flat surface. And probably some of the biggest problems that I had was I didn't have a spotter, I wasn't wearing a harness, and it was my first time doing it on the flat ground. So that was the biggest issue.
And then tell them what happened.
Oh yeah, so what happened was to be fair, I did land the first backflip. It wasn't very pretty, but I did land it, so I can check it off the list. But actually after a few more failed attempts, each one getting worse and worse, once I landed on my shoulder, then on my back, and then I landed very poorly on the back of my head, and I ended up having 3 fractures in my C1, C2 vertebrae, which surround the part of your spinal cord that control breathing and heartbeat. So fortunately there was no nerve damage, but it was a pretty serious location. Yeah, so what we're seeing, you know, leading up to this was there's some warning signs about some safety stuff. So when you're practicing this, you know, looking at it from that way, like, okay, do I have a spotter? Is there a harness? Should I call for help? Should I do this on a soft surface first? So there's a couple warning signs there, which anytime we get excited, we're not paying attention where, you know, shit happens, right? Right, yeah. So, and then the last part of it too was practicing a high skill in a fatigue state. So these are all kind of things that, you know, generated kind of this perfect storm that David found himself in. What happened after you essentially broke your neck? The first thing I thought was, oh God, I'm paralyzed. Because my body went into shock, I couldn't feel anything, and the fact that I couldn't feel anything made me think I was paralyzed. Right. So my first instinct was actually to wiggle my fingers and toes. But I didn't move my head at all, because... And could you wiggle your fingers and toes? I could wiggle my fingers and toes, but I was very confused, and I was like, well, I'm not dead, I'm not paralyzed, right, but something feels really wrong. Right. And one thing that should have happened that did not happen was 911 was not called at any point. Wow. Anytime that you have a neck or back injury and you think there's anything wrong, that should happen. And all of us in that room, myself included, I did kind of ask, do you think we should call someone? But none of us did. So that was a huge problem. David still being the nice guy that you are, hey, I broke my neck, can we call somebody? And people are like, no. So how did you get to the hospital? What happened? So what happened was, where I was at, you know, they were like, you know, we're going to help you sit up. We're going to, you know, cradle your neck and help you sit up. And that's not good. That's terrible. When we're handing spinal injuries, we don't do that. No, it was terrible. So we're going to cradle your neck, we're going to help you sit up, and then we're going to have one of our gym members drive you home in your car so that you can have your car. And what I want you to do is take a painkiller and sleep it off, and it's probably just, you know, you probably have muscle tightness and you're just scared because this has never happened. If you were watching my face right now, I'm like almost like, this is the first time hearing these details of it, so it's kind of like making me Yeah.
It's pissing me off.
Yeah. So actually, to give you a little more details, when they were cradling the neck, one of the people was like, "I'm gonna try and tilt it to see what it feels like," and so he cradled my neck and started to tilt it, and I said, "Please stop. I don't like that."
Right.
And he was like, "Does it hurt?" I was like, "Doesn't it really hurt? But I just don't. It doesn't feel right." And so he's like, "Okay, I'll try the other way," and I was like, "No, please stop it."
Right. So if you're paying attention, and because we're kind of trained in handling injuries like these, that's a great way to just kill somebody. So if anybody's like hurt and has something's wrong with their neck or their spine, that's not how we do it. You call a professional, and you get a professional over there to handle it immediately. Right. So they get you in your car, and then what? You drive yourself to the hospital?
No, I was in the passenger seat, and one of the other students of the class got in the car, and she started to back out, and as soon as she started to turn, I was holding my neck. As soon as it turned, the pressure when I went like that was excruciating. And I was like, could you please go slowly? And she's like, I'm going like 9 miles an hour.
Right.
And she was like, I'm taking you to the emergency room.
Yeah.
So actually the whole time she wanted me to go to the emergency room. So I think there were people in the room that were thinking he should go to the emergency room, but maybe in the group setting were too afraid to speak up.
Sure.
So when it was just us, she was like, I'm taking you there. It's going to happen.
And then when you got to the emergency room, what happened?
Well, I walked in there and trying to stay positive. So I was like, they were like, what seems to be the problem? And I told them what I just told all of you, and they didn't seem too worried because I walked in there. But after they took the X-ray, which by the way took me forever to lie down, it was so hard. After they took the X-ray, the whole mood in the emergency room shifted, and they were like, this is no longer a joking matter, because we were kind of goofing around at first to keep things light. Like, this is no longer a joking matter. This is the C1, C2 fracture. Don't move. This is life or death. And when they said that, I was in another state of shock, just staring at the ceiling.
Yeah, everything changed right there.
Everything.
And what were you thinking about when they said that?
The first thing I thought about, I've never told anyone publicly this, but I told my mom that actually the first thing that went through my mind before I even got to the emergency room when I hit my neck was, I can't be dead. I want to have a family. Like I seriously learned a lot about myself in that moment, because I was like, wow, I guess having a family of my own is like really important to me.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that's what you were thinking about when you got that?
When I got to the emergency room, when I got to the emergency room, I started thinking about how am I going to tell my parents, and what am I going to do about work, and the other things started to kick in. But the first thing I thought about was like what I wanted out of life and how I might not be able to have it.
Right.
Yeah.
And we want a family. And are you single right now, or do you have a girlfriend?
I'm single right now.
Ladies, look at this guy. So let's pause there. We'll come back to like a part 2.
Okay.
And we'll talk about how you manage the recovery and some of the awesome goals that you're doing now, because obviously he's a healthier individual.
That's right.
So we'll see you again for part 2.
See you guys.
So that was awesome.
That was cool.